So I did my author study over Leah Johnson, a little bit on her backstory. She was born and raised in central Indiana. She started writing in fifth grade, and she attended Sarah Lawrence College for her MFA in fiction writing. Her best selling novel, You Should See Me in a Crown, has won many awards, including the inaugural Reese's Book Club YA Pick. In 2020, she was also chosen as a Publishers Weekly Flying Start. And when she's not writing or ranting about pop culture and politics on Twitter, she is a professor of creative writing and composition. For my first artifact, it's actually her debut YA novel, You Should See Me in a Crown. This story follows an African American girl named Liz who has big dreams to leave her small Midwestern town in order to live her best life. So she has big aspirations to become a doctor and go to med school. For artifact number 2, I have an interview with Electric Lit, which is a website that she actually used to work for. In this interview, she discussed her inspirations for writing You Should See Me in a Crown, which the main one that she talks about is that she never really saw herself in YA novels, so she wanted to write her own. For artifact 3, in this video, Leah Johnson explains what the power of story means to her. She explains how her overall goal is to create windows or mirrors for younger people. So again, that's one thing she talks about a lot is representation and how important that really is, especially as a young person. Artifact 4 is her sophomore novel, Rise to the Sun. It is about two girls who attend a life-changing music festival. So this would be like Coachella or Bonnaroo, and it just talks about their experiences at this music festival. So the Reading Chemist is a 34-year-old PhD organic chemist who enjoys reviewing books in their free time. They give their review of Leah Johnson's Rise to the Sun. They gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and they really enjoyed it. Artifact 6. So there are actually many celebrities who appreciate Leah Johnson's work, but one big one is Reese Witherspoon. She chose to read You Should See Me in a Crown for her book club, and I have a photo of her holding the book and then also a website with more information about this. Next, for Artifact 7, I have a podcast, Are You There, Love? It's Us, Danny and Izzy. So they had an interview with Leah Johnson. She discussed many things in this podcast. She discussed the difficulties with publishing a book during a pandemic, the impact of celebrity book clubs, like we just talked about with Reese Witherspoon, and then also an upcoming project with Disney. I found out that Disney actually bought her book, so that's really interesting to learn about as well. Artifact number 8, Leah Johnson does a Q&A during this author talk, which is presented by the Indianapolis Public Library's LGBTQ plus community. And she answers many questions about the setting of her book, the theme, and the plot of her book as well. Artifact 9 is just actually Leah Johnson's personal website. On this website, you can find a lot of information about her books, her portfolio, her social media, so like Instagram and Twitter accounts you can follow, and just her life and updates in general. Artifact 10, the It Gets Better Project had a live chat called Real Talk with Leah Johnson, and in this question and answer, Leah talks about her book, she talks about representation, and also Tumblr. So this was a really interesting interview. These are some quotes that I picked up from her text and from certain interviews. So I just really think Leah Johnson's work is really significant, especially for young adults, because she really puts emphasis on how important representation is, especially as an African American girl, young adult growing up, and also even just the LGBTQ community. Um, so there's not as much representation with that either. So that's really what she wanted to incorporate into her work. So I'm going to read aloud a little bit from You Should See Me in a Crown. Okay, so it starts here. When you already feel like everything about you makes you stand out, it just makes more sense to find as many ways to blend in as you can. But still, there's something about the way Derek is looking at Rachel that makes my heart sink. People like Rachel and Derek get the perfect high school sweetheart love story to tell their kids about one day. But tall, black, broke Liz Leidy doesn't stand a chance. Not in a place like this, anyway. I don't resent my classmates, I really don't. But sometimes, okay, most of the time, it's just that I don't feel like one of them. I've searched through every Campbell's store and I finally found the corsage for you. Derek extends his hand and Rachel grabs it, fully sobbing now. How she manages to look like an Instagram model, even as she sheds a bucket full of fake tears, I'll never understand. So I really think this part of the book is relatable for a lot of young adults having to deal with the pressure of finding a prom date and everything that comes with that in high school. I really think that she represents that well. And also just creating a mirror for an African American girl or a window as well. I think she does a really good job of that. And one theme that she really emphasizes in this book is microaggressions. So, in this book, as the main character, she lives in a small Midwestern town that, doesn't have a lot of diversity and is rooted in racism. So, she deals with microaggressions a lot. And also, as an LGBTQ, being part of that community as well. So, I will define microaggressions really quickly. Microaggression is a term used for commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative attitudes towards stigmatized or culturally marginalized groups. So these can be intentional or unintentional, and I have some resources on the next slide. So this first website is just what is a microaggression. And how can microaggressions be in the classroom? Like I said, they can be intentional, unintentional. So I'm sure teachers do this with stereotypes all the time as well, unintentionally. And I also have a QR code to hear stories from those that are marginalized. And I found those really interesting to read about as well. And I think it's really important as a young adult to be educated on these types of topics. Overall, I learned a lot from doing this author study, and it was really fun.